Welcome back to Brick by Brick. Today we're going to be doing a hypothetical matchup prediction. In this case, it is going to be between the current governor of California, Governor Gavin Newsom, on the Democratic side, and then on the Republican side, we'll be going with the usual candidate that is most likely to be the nominee, that being J.D. Vance, the current vice president. So I've already characterized all the safe, likely, and lean states. Most of these states will remain in this position unless something crazy happens. We got the lean states there of Maine, Minnesota, New Hampshire, and Virginia. Oh, and New Mexico for the Democrats, and then for the Republicans, we just have the one lean district there in Maine. Republicans do have quite a few electoral college votes in the likely section, with Texas, Florida, Ohio, and to a lesser extent Iowa. But that brings us just to a start, which brings us to about 225 for the Democrat, Governor Gavin Newsom, to 219 for J.D. Vance, the Republican. So we'll start out on the West Coast and then just move eastward. So I do think that, well, I'm going to add a tilt characterization, and I should point out at the beginning, the rest of these states are going to be tilt one way or the other. So it is certainly a possibility they could go in the other direction. This is just a matchup prediction. If the election were to be held today, this is how I would call it. I do think in Nevada that it would probably end up in the Democratic column. They, aside from 2024, have had a pretty consistent history of voting for Democrats on the presidential level. Nevada does have a Republican governor, though, and has certainly indicated that they are willing to vote Republican. But I do think just because Republicans are not in a great approval position today, that in large part because of Trump's disapproval rating, that it would end up in the Democratic column, would be close. And then next up in Arizona, I think is probably going to end up in the Republican column, go to Vance. This state went to Trump by the biggest margin out of all the core 7 swing states. And he went to Trump actually by a lean margin, which was interesting. I do think that it will probably narrow up to be a tilt, but nonetheless, that is going to be 11 electoral college votes for J.D. Vance. And then we will we'll go to the south. Oh, first we got to get to so actually, I was on the fence. I think this district in Nebraska will most likely be in the Democratic column. Harris was even able to win this, and that was a pretty bad performance for the Democrats on the national stage that year in 2024. So most likely will end up in the Democratic column, but I was on the fence about whether or not it'll be lean or tilt. For now, we'll go with tilt, but regardless, that's just going to be one more electoral college vote for Newsom. And that brings us to 232 to 230, so still essentially tied. We'll go to the south now. I do think that in the state of Georgia, it will be a close call. I have gone back and forth on this state. I do think that it's got a good shot of going either way. I do think in the long run it will trend toward the Democratic Party. It was the closest state in 2020, but it did end up going to Biden. It also has 2 Democratic senators. It does have a Republican governor, but as shown, it is open to electing Democrats, so I think it will be in the tilt blue margin. And then a state that I think is worth the same amount of electoral college votes, North Carolina, though. I don't think Democrats will be able to do well enough to win that state, even if the election were to be held today, but it is certainly possible that it could flip, but it would take quite a bit of good timing and luck and strategy on the part of the Democratic Party. And then we're going to go, I do think that Newsom would probably be able to do decently well in the Rust Belt. J.D. Vance does have probably more Rust Belt appeal than Governor Gavin Newsom was, just since J.D. Vance is, of course, from Ohio. He was previously a senator there. So the 3 Rust Belt states are really tough to characterize. I do think that it would probably be, I do think that Wisconsin and Michigan would probably be in the Democratic column, but I'm going to go with Pennsylvania, I think, is the most likely of the states to vote for J.D. Vance, so it will be, I do predict it'll be close. It is 273 to 265, but nonetheless, still a Democratic victory for Governor Gavin Newsom. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.